can.
One of the most iconic scenes from American Psycho is when Mr. Bateman is going on his monologue about how much he loves Huey Lewis and the News and their song Hip to Be Square. And he's doing it all while getting ready to kill the drunk and unsuspecting Jared Leto. Putting down the mat and getting the axe ready and putting on his thing while he's saying all these really deep opinions about the most superficial kind of music. And funnily enough, Huey Lewis actually loved the film and actually agreed with a lot of the opinions he had about the music and about what that song was actually about. But it really sums up perfectly what this whole movie's about, in that it is a satire. It's clearly a satire. The book was more of a subtle satire, but the author actually agreed with the change in tone in the movie, where it was a lot more obviously comedic at points. Because it's one thing writing some of these horrific events, another thing portraying it where you're just following a psychopath with no satire or dark comedy going on. You know, it's just kind of like, who wants to watch that for an hour, 2 hours? But at its heart, it's a satire about that high-class American corporate sort of waspy world that we don't really understand or know about.
And much of the film is a social satire on the late 1980s about a group of very wealthy, privileged young men and women in New York society who are caught up in a world that's obsessed with surfaces, with restaurants, with food, with clothes, with acquisition.
It's harder to understand, I think, because it's that very American thing where they're on the cutting edge culturally for the past 100 years. And they don't really have a class system, but class systems are going to emerge anyway. And so it's this class system that anyone technically can tap into. And the obsessions within it are all this superficial bullshit. And that is everything that the central character is obsessed with. He's obsessed with how he looks, you know. We spend 5 minutes just going through his skincare routine in the morning. A skincare routine that Christian Bale actually kept up for real every morning on set. Among other things he did in order to get into the role, method acting style, you know, staying in character, and never used his Welsh accent once. Everything's about what restaurant you can get into. Much of the film is spent just people trying to get reservations in the most exclusive restaurant. Dorsia.
We should have gone to Dorsia.
I could have gotten us a table.
Nobody goes there anymore.
Promising people you can get them into Dorsia, and like the central character going on a homicidal murder rampage after realizing his business card isn't as good as someone else's. And it's just brilliant. And I do want to go and read the book because I've heard it's a lot more detailed, a lot more graphic apparently.
Yeah.
A lot of the killings in this movie are actually really toned down, supposedly. But yeah, just such a fun vehicle to explore that world that most people never really get a look in of.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like the third time I've seen this now. Someone recommended this to me many years ago, and at first when I watched it, I didn't really like, because at the start of it, nothing really happens until he actually murders that homeless guy. You're like, what is this guy about? And then you kind of realise that he's an American Psycho. So you're like, how does this title translate to following around a Wall Street banker? And then it kind of drops. Why don't you just get a job to the homeless guy?
And it's interesting in that scene. Do you think, is he immediately planning to kill him? Because a lot of his killings seem pretty spontaneous.
I think he's immediately planning to kill him. Yeah.
See, I kind of don't. Because he spends a lot of his time... he spends all of his time putting up a fake persona. Trying to copy what other people do. Thinking, right, how do I portray myself in this moment?
Bateman essentially, he invents himself in every situation. It's completely random how he is going to behave in any situation.
In that early on scene where he's at dinner with a bunch of cunts, his girlfriend and the woman he's having an affair with, and the guy that he knows is actually fucking his fiancée, but he doesn't really care. He goes on that long diatribe about the important things we need to be working on in the world, like apartheid.
Yeah,
all these things.
yeah.
We have to promote general social concern, and less materialism in young people.
And you know he's not even read that from one source, but his evil little computer calculating brain has dissected that from various things in the news and things he's heard people that actually care about it say, and put it together and sent it out as a package into the world like, this is human, this is what a human should do and act like.
He's much like a fucking Bateman's like a robot, isn't he?
Yeah, but I kind of actually not feel sorry for him because he's a piece of shit, but you do see he's not happy with himself. He definitely feels like a freak, and he knows he doesn't operate like any other person or most people. He knows whatever experience other people are having in life or normal people are having in life is not the experience he's having. And he's having to... He's an alien that's landed on Earth, assumed human form, and is trying to fit in.
He's definitely got OCD tendencies.
Yeah.
From the way that from his skincare routine and stuff like that, and the way he methodically like puts down the mat so it doesn't get dirty. But he's got very like autistic kind of qualities as well. Like the way he's, even though he's going out in public, he's so socially awkward. Like, it springs to mind that scene of when his assistant comes in. He's like, "And wear a different dress."
You look nice today.
Don't wear that outfit again.
What? I didn't hear you.
I said, do not wear that outfit again.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Socially awkward though. That I wouldn't describe that as socially awkward. I would actually, you would on paper say he's incredibly successful socially.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a beautiful fiance. He's seen on the surface, he's got this array of friends, and he's always out and dinners and drinks and this and that and the other. But they kind of all secretly despise each other. Even like the dirtbags that he works with, who are these typical corporate 80s
bank or whatever,
horrible, superficial, homophobic pieces of shit. But they're still humans.
Well, one of them turns out to be gay, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, one of them turns out to be gay and in love with it.
Yeah,
which I thought
yeah.
was a good test.
Patrick.
Good test.
That
And it's actually an interesting they because I don't know if that character who's in love with him is in the book, but essentially the homeless man with a dog who he kills in this is a substitute for his character in the book, who's actually a gay man that hits on him in the park, and he kills the gay man.
Really?
And he is like one of his most memorable or recurring traits or beliefs in the book is how homophobic he is. He absolutely hates gay people, which you don't get the feeling at all. You don't get even the feeling. He doesn't have anything bad to say in his inner monologue about gay people in this. He expresses saying like, does he join in with when they're trashing gay people at one point, or does he?
No, I don't think he does. You know.
But I thought it was interesting. He actually, when he's confessing later in the movie, which we'll get to later, but when he's confessing later about all the killings he does, he describes the homeless man as a faggot.
Yeah,
so I was wondering, is that a leftover in the script from when he was still a gay character and they took out? Because I feel like if on top of, it sounds dumb, but because really murder's the worst thing you can do, but for some reason murder is more palatable in fiction than even something nowadays like homophobia. Like if he was homophobic and racist, say, on top of everything else, I think it would just make the movie virtually unwatchable.
No, just cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
Oh, I forgot. Bateman's dating someone from the ACLU.
I think it is a leftover from the script, because I read that they took exact dialogue from the book and translated it into the film. Obviously, what they could use, do you know what I mean? Some of it's an exact paraphrasing of the book, so maybe that was actually, so that does make sense, because he's never called anyone a faggot before, and why would he call the homeless man a faggot?
And again, he has this veneer of being the good guy, but it's all this kind of phony. He's regurgitating the things feels like he's supposed to say.
Yeah,
he has that bizarre. It's like an AI simulator put together his personality of what you're supposed to be like. But even underneath, he didn't strike me as prejudiced to any one group in particular. He seemed like he had equal opportunities, hatred for everyone.
Yeah, because
you know what I mean.
There's that scene where he's trying to get his bed sheets cleaned in the laundrette run by two kind of Chinese immigrants.
Yeah,
and he never once, from what I can remember, mentions anything about their race or anything like, which at that time you got to remember that this film was set in 1987. The book was set in 1989. I don't know why they done it in 2 years earlier, but they would be those kind of people who believe that they're above everyone would be racist in the 80s.
I just thought it was interesting that he kind of, because he's clearly very intelligent. But yeah, he just didn't seem to do anything. Speaking of that scene, that's one of the funniest scenes to me. When he runs into that woman that fancies him, and he's just fobbing her off, and he's trying to get her to sort out his sheets because they can't get the blood stains out. And she's just looking at the stains like, what the fuck is that?
See, that's another example of what I mean. Being awkward, like, do you know what I mean?
But that's what I was originally saying. You brought me back to my point. I don't think he's socially awkward. I think he's
just a narcissist.
He's socially assertive to the point where people fall into his orbit.
Yeah,
but he's socially inept in the sense of I don't know that he doesn't know what to do socially. I think he knows exactly what to do socially, but none of it comes naturally. But he is so socially assertive that he just gets, like, people like that do get far in life. Like, there is supposedly like a much higher portion if you take the normal populace and what percentage are sociopaths, and take a population of people who are very high up in corporate positions or CEOs, you get a much higher percentage of sociopaths. So there's something about this personality trait that gets far in life. So I get what you're saying. There's a gap where he doesn't really understand naturally how humans socially interact, but I don't think it's awkwardness or ineptness really. I think it's nearly, if anything, it's probably a benefit to him because he doesn't really have most of the human emotions, or he's not motivated. He doesn't get emotions from human interaction, so there's no motivation to, like, guilt wouldn't work on him. Things like that wouldn't work on him, but thrill and exhilaration and fear works.
He's definitely a narcissist because he doesn't care what anyone thinks apart from himself.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you know, that scene's the best example. She's like, do you want to go to, like, and he's like, can you sort out these sheets? Whereas, like, everyone else, you know, I'll use work as an example. Like, I've been in meetings with, like, directors, and they've, like, basically, like, obliterated people in front of everyone. And I'd be like, if I had to do that, I'd be, like, stressing about it for, like, a week before. Like, well, are they going to hate me for doing this? But they just don't have it, as you said. Like, and that's why they get so far, because you need to be ruthless.
Listen, Paul, squash. Call me.
So Paul Allen, getting to his character, I found it interesting that when they first meet, he has a particular hatred of Paul Allen, and I kind of secretly think he has nearly a jealousy of him, to the point where I feel like he's trying to model himself on him at times. The first time they meet, he's got very similar haircut and very similar glasses.
Yeah, he definitely looks up to Paul Allen to the point of jealousy, because that's why he murdered him and took over his apartment. Because he does this whole monologue of, Paul Allen's apartment's better than mine.
There was a moment of sheer panic when I realized that Paul's apartment overlooks the park. And it's obviously more expensive than mine.
He's just murdered someone. He's trying to dispose of their body and break into his apartment so he can make it look like he left the country in a rush. And the thing he's most concerned about is the fact that his apartment's better than his.
Yeah. He hates it, man.
How good's the murder scene as well?
It's also a personal statement about the band itself. Hey, Paul! Ah!
He's such a put-together, reserved character. He's so put together and still stony faced that you can tell he's nearly just holding everything together. And when he kills Paul Allen, and he screams and he pants and he sits down, it's like he just had the best sex of his life.
Yeah, I know.
Like you can see just pure cathartic explosion. Do you ever do stuff like that? Like if you're at a funeral and you're not crying, you're like, should I be crying?
Yeah.
Like, should I pretend to cry?
Yeah, I do that all the time, and like sometimes I just have hatred for people that I've never spoken to or met. Like my train nemesis. Like we had an argument.
Explain that.
This woman always beats me to the train, like, and gets a seat, and like ever since then, like I've been. Like she's been running for the train and the doors are closing and she's like, stop it, and I'm pretending I'm listening to music and can't hear her. And then the train door.
In your mind, this is a mutual rivalry and she probably doesn't even know.
I know, yeah, so that's probably a good example, but I like Willem Dafoe's little police guy character.
What can you tell me about Paul Allen?
Well, I think for one that he was probably a closet homosexual who did a lot of cocaine.
Love Willem Dafoe and anything he does.
And he's coming in and he's kind of quizzing Patrick Bateman about the disappearance of Paul Allen, where he goes, let me check, and he opens a book and he's like, I think I was returning videotapes. And he just looks at him.
Which becomes a recurring mantra.
Yeah.
Anytime he's about to do some horrible, evil shit,
and
if someone asks him where he's going, he's always returning videotapes.
I've got to return some videotapes.
Probably returning videotapes. I have to return some videotapes.
And you got that classic meme of him when he's wearing the headphones that I always see.
Walking through,
I can't remember the exact
There's the other meme that's popular where he's saying, why can't you do it, you stupid bastard?
Yeah. So that's funny. But what I like about Willem Dafoe and the director of this, the director asked Willem Dafoe to do all his scenes in 3 different ways. So it was Patrick, he knew Patrick Bateman murdered him, he didn't know, and Patrick Bateman knew that he murdered him, kind of thing. It's hard to explain.
No, I get you.
Yeah. So they've done it in like 3 different versions, and then
really?
I don't think Christian Bale knew, and that's why it looks so like realistic.
Unnerving, because he was probably a bit like, what the fuck, like, why are you being different each time? That's really interesting.
It's kind of clever,
Because his whole relationship with him is this constant cat and mouse of, you always feel like Willem Dafoe 100% thinks he's done it. Because you don't know who else he's talking. He might be having interviews with every single person that he knew.
Yeah,
But you always get this feeling that he's trying to give him enough rope to hang himself with.
Huey Lewis in the news. Great stuff. I just bought it on my way here. You heard it?
One scene I was certain that he knew, in the next season, as you said, I think he's trying to trip him up. I think obviously you can't tell from one interview, but I think he sort of knows when he first speaks to him, and Bateman's acting all shifty, like, do you want a mineral water?
It is hard to say at times though, because I do think at points, there's only a couple of hints that Bateman's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Because remember, there's a moment early on where he tries to get a reservation at Dorsia.
Yeah.
The elusive, mythical Dorsia.
Yeah,
reservations at. And the guy just starts maniacally laughing down the phone at him. So, he starts going really batshit crazy, and one of my favourite things is he goes to feed a cat to an ATM machine.
Yeah, again.
Because it's telling them. Obviously it's not telling them, but he is feeding that cat to that ATM machine. He sees that old woman, shoots her. Sees the cops, shoots them. blows up the police cars, and you're like,
exactly.
did that just happen? You're scratching your head like, holy shit, did that just happen? He goes into his building to sign in, and he looks like he's getting his pen out, and he shoots the guy.
Yeah.
And then he does sign in at the other side, and then shoots him as well. And then he sees a cleaner, and he comes back through the revolving doors and shoots the cleaner.
That was so funny.
It's so funny. Which is shooting people. It just is funny the way it happens. And then he gets in, and he has that panicked, raging call to his lawyer where he just confesses the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't want to leave anything out here. I guess I've killed maybe 20 people. Maybe 40.
He leaves the call and he's just like, oh. I feel like it is a release at that point. And it's one of the most it's the only time you see him really emotional where it's not happy emotion from killing, exhilaration from killing.
Yeah.
And it's fear, but it's also, it does feel like there's relief. Like, it does feel like there's genuine guilt. Like, he does feel guilty on some level for what he's doing, or maybe just self-loathing. But there is an emotion there, a negative emotion about himself associated with everything he's doing. So he's confessed, and he goes home, and the next day he goes over to check out his serial killer hideout, Paul Allen's apartment. Because he faked that Paul Allen was in London, and he's surprised to hear actually that someone spotted him in London when he's speaking to William Dafoe's policeman at one point, and he's a bit confused by that. But anyway, he goes over he started using Paul Allen's apartment basically to bring prostitutes back to, murder him. Very sad scene, because you really see this prostitute she's freaked out by him. She's been hurt by him before physically with all the sick games he plays with him. Again, hilariously, when he's having a threesome with the prostitutes, he's looking at himself in the mirror the whole time, which just sums up his character. But he's used this Paul Allen's place this whole time for all this sick stuff, and he goes back there the next day. Not sure what he's going back there for, maybe to try and hide evidence, or he's confessed already to his lawyer, and he thinks he's going to get caught. But he goes back there, and the whole place has been cleaned up and painted. Now go with what you think is happening from this point onwards.
And also, he in Paul Allen's apartment, he had hung bodies in the closet as well, didn't he? So he says, "What have you done with the closet?"
Yeah, which is where the real estate agent finds him.
He's not right in the head, is he? So I think none of it happens.
So give me a breakdown. So Paul Allen, this wasn't in his apartment. He has gone to London.
The breakdown is Paul Allen actually went to London.
He's selling his apartment.
He's fucked off. See, this brings up to another question though. What about the prostitutes? Were they actually murdered? Or he definitely did beat one of them up.
Okay, well I'll tell you what I think.
Yeah.
And I'll even go as far to say I'll be cocky and say no. I'll tell you what actually happened.
Okay.
He did kill those prostitutes.
Right.
He did kill Paul Allen.
Okay.
He did do all of it.
Yeah.
Obviously the ATM machine didn't tell him feed me a cat.
Yeah.
But other than clearly bizarre physical representations of his delusion, everything happened as you saw it.
Okay. So
here's what happened. And the genius of this, and I actually never got this the first couple of times I watched it. I was as confused as you. But it's actually perfectly sums up kind of the point that this movie's about in a way, or another one of the points it's making, is what happens with that real estate agent? Like, forget the fact that you're trying to work out, well, how's it all like going on, and where is Paul Allen, and then his lawyer, when he meets him in the next scene, he says he met Paul Allen in London for 2 weeks and had dinner with him.
Because I had dinner with Paul Allen twice in London, just 10 days ago.
No, you...
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Interesting coincidence that his lawyer's the only person that's seen Paul Allen miraculously alive.
Yeah, good point.
And why does this real estate agent cover everything up? And they have a very bizarre, ominous moment where she realizes who he is.
I want to know what happened here.
Don't make any trouble, please. I suggest you go.
And he's responsible for the mess she found
Oh,
it.
because she wants to
and
sell
she
it.
needs to sell this place.
Yeah,
she can't have it This is a beautiful apartment in Manhattan. It's probably worth fucking millions. It's probably $100,000 to rent a month or something. And it's not that much, but it's probably worth a crazy amount. She might go bankrupt if it's not on the market for a few months because there's a police investigation, or a massive police investigation. They probably have it there for years because it's multiple people being murdered. So she covers it up for money because it's at the end of the day about money. The lawyer covers for him. When they have that moment where he's saying, I don't know what you're doing, but this isn't funny anymore. He's saying,
don't stop.
I know I'm your lawyer.
Yeah.
I know you fucking killed that guy. I travelled to London to have dinner with him so that I could say I was in London and saw him and had dinner with him. What the fuck are you doing?
But if it was all about money...
Because the linchpin is, he says himself, my punishment continues to evade me. I can't get my comeuppance because people who get to these sort of positions don't get their comeuppance. They always get away with it. And that's true. It's only really in recent times you're actually starting to see powerful people get their comeuppance. And even then, like, Prince Andrew's not really got his comeuppance. It's just he's just had to have it aired in public.
Yeah.
But, still, it's so hard. But it's only a recent thing.
But the only thing then I don't understand is, of all that, if it really happened, when he shoots all the policemen and the police cars blow up. Like,
yeah, I didn't really.
It's like. So
maybe you are
so
right.
So the police would stop looking for him then. Like,
it's ambiguous enough where I think he definitely killed some people.
There's
but
still points.
It's ambiguous enough where you are like, what? Maybe a lot of it didn't happen.
Yeah, maybe he killed like a select few, as you said, and then the rest was just in his like warped mind, like the cat ATM thing, as you said, blowing up it's impossible to blow up a police car by shooting it with a handgun.
I don't know if it's impossible, but it just didn't. It that should have been in a Arnold Schwarzenegger movie,
or something.
It didn't fit in, so that's why part of it makes you immediately think: did that actually happen? Did that whole sequence happen?
Yeah, I'd be interested to actually read the book. And,
I'm definitely going
to. And compare them, because, as you said, he's very toned down in this, from what I understand. But he was still.
It's supposed to be absolute. Like, I was reading I was reading some of the comparisons of how much they toned down certain specific murders, like when he murders his ex-girlfriend during the threesome. That's toned down. You just see like some blood.
Yeah.
And he's, I guess, biting her.
Yeah.
Under the sheets. Apparently, in reality, he beats her to death with a mace. He beats her up with a mace, smashes her ankles and her legs, stabs her a bunch of times, and bites her fingers off. And apparently, the murders are described for sometimes 4 or 5 pages in the book, just describing the murders. So I can see why it was so controversial at the time. Phil Collins apparently vowed to never read it because he's spoken about a lot in the book, and the whole music obsession is hammered home a lot more in the book. He's obsessed with fame and music. They encapsulated it quite well, I think, even though I haven't read the book. But looking at how obsessed he is, looking at the great monologues he has about music at times, I guess it doesn't carry across how obsessed he is. But if you'd read the book, I think you'd probably be happy with how they fit it in the movie.
The actual biggest budget expenditure of this movie was getting the rights to play the music.
That makes total sense, because it was a low budget movie. It was only 10 million.
And then secondly, they had to go back and forwards with a lot of like the stuff, like the suits he wears, and like this is Gucci or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they'd be like going back and forward about, because they know what the film's about. You can wear the suit, but you can't wear our suits in any scenes that you're murdering someone.
That's hilarious.
Because obviously that's going to look very bad. So that's why you're never wearing like a suit in any of the murders.
Valentino Couture. It looks so soft.
Your compliment was sufficient, Lewis.
In the book, he says, "Don't touch my Rolex," but in this he goes, "Don't touch my watch." and that's because Rolex were like, no way are we letting you wear one of our watches.
That must have harmed it a lot because commercialism is such a big thing in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Bateman. Well, he's obviously a psycho, isn't he? But I still think
American psycho.
Yeah. I still think he has some kind of human factor, because remember when he invites his assistant who clearly fancies him, and she's so happy that he's invited him out to. He's invited her out to dinner. And I think he plans to murder her, and he's
like very close to
getting
murder
everything
her.
ready, and then
With the nail gun.
Yeah, he has a change of heart at the last second, and then he says, "I know, I just can't control myself, so it's best if you leave." So I think.
Does he say that? Because he. Oh, you're right. He does, but he does. That's when the voicemail interrupts him. But he does have a change of heart.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And the way he words it, he's telling the audience.
Yeah.
Why. So that is interesting. And that is nice because that actress, I love that actress. She so perfectly sells her character in this.
Yeah.
You do like her, you feel sorry for her, and you get an instant insight that she's kind of like just a nice girl who's got an assistant job, but her life's kind of going nowhere, and she fancies Patrick Bateman.
She loves him.
And you want something to work out for her, and you I'm so glad she doesn't die.
He's such a dickhead to her, though.
He really is. And that's probably partly why she loves him.
Yeah.
You're kidding, right? You look great. Very fit.
You can always be thinner. Look better.
What about his one with the woman he's cheating? He's having the affair.
I don't know.
with?
I don't think you can really count that, because this woman is, well, you can. But this woman's out of her box, like.
I think that's part of why he likes her, though.
Yeah, because she doesn't speak.
Because he does, I wouldn't say care for her exactly, but he definitely prefers her to his fiancée. And probably part of that is just because, I don't know, he doesn't have to listen to her bullshit as much. But also, she's she's this delicate flower who is always so out of her mind on pharmaceuticals that he can just, tell her. She's essentially a walking, good-looking body to him who he can be like, sit there, order this for dinner, and we're going to fuck in a minute. And, I feel like, but I do feel like he kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong actually, maybe he doesn't like her at all. I don't think he's even capable of it. But it just felt like there was a weird sweetness, at least from her side, to their relationship.
Will you call me before Easter?
Maybe.
Yeah, but that's like all of his relationships.
Yeah,
they're sweet to him, but he doesn't reciprocate it.
Well, not Reese Witherspoon. She's a cunt.
Yeah.
Not an evil psycho cunt like he is, but she's definitely a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I love the Christmas party, when she's trying to get him to... She puts the reindeer hat on him. And, and she's trying to get him to... She's saying, pretending the dog's a reindeer.
Yeah.
And you just picturing, the evil inner monologue going on in his head right at that second.
You're a fucking ugly bitch. I want to stab you to death, then play around with your blood.
Because he... Even though, he reveals even more of himself when he's about to kill someone, because he doesn't give a fuck then. But you see... There's levels of the mask he wears. His biggest mask will be for the policeman and the corporate people he works with.
Oh, yeah.
A lesser mask will be for his sort of girlfriends and relationship. And then with the prostitutes, I'd say he wears his last mask before he just reveals himself as a psycho killer, where he is just ordering them about and just being, absolutely gross and horrible. But in that completely... unrelent, he doesn't. There's no guilt or pleasure even from it. He's just that is what he's actually like.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Wolf of Wall Street, but with a lot more murdering. You know what I mean? But the Wolf of Wall Street paints it as all fun and shit like that.
Yeah, but
this made me feel. But do you know what? Not even the murders made me feel physically sick. It was the going out to all these fancy restaurants and all the smooching that you have to do. I'm like, oh, it makes my skin crawl. Do you know what I mean?
And as much as he's obviously a psychopath who really doesn't understand other people, if I if for whatever reason you said like you're sentenced to 10 weeks of being a stockbroker and you have to like live that life.
Yeah, fuck that.
I feel like I'd be as confused as Patrick Bateman is trying to fit in with normal humans, where I just you know when it's just like I don't understand how this is your motivations in life. Like this
It's the
is
money,
the thing.
innit?
No, but not just that. You can like money and fucking. You know, I guarantee there's stockbrokers who have passions for art and fucking, you don't have passions for art, but you know, who are just normal dudes who fucking ended up making a load of money doing stockbroking or whatever it is Patrick Bateman does, or whatever they do on Wall Street. But it's that sort of thing of like caring about what you look, caring about being seen, caring about having like the new watch. Like someone recently was like showing off about their watch to us. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Can't remember who it was and won't say who, even if we could remember. But I just don't get that. Maybe it's because I've never been rich.
Well, his actual real passion was music, innit? He was obsessed.
True, yeah, he loved music.
He was obsessed with music.
But he absolutely loved the most superficial, popular, mainstream music.
You actually listen to Whitney Houston? You own a Whitney Houston CD? More than one?
Yeah, and that's funny because he never mentions it in public. He always mentions his obsession with music when he's alone in the apartment. Because I think that if he mentioned one of the things that he likes, you know, music's very objective. Do you know what I mean? I could be like, this is a great album, and then you turn around and be like, oh no, I think that's shit. And then
when his girlfriend starts cracking up saying you actually listen to Whitney Houston.
Exactly. Like, and I think he'd get fucking well offended if because to him, his opinion's the best, and he is the best. You know what I mean? And I think he's nervous because he loves it so much to mention it in case someone shits on it. That's what I think.
Maybe, yeah. I also kind of think that is as deep as he can get.
Yeah,
kind of most superficial pop music.
Important message. Crucial, really. That's beautifully stated on the album.
Christian Bale is brilliant. It's so endlessly quotable. The videotapes, you've seen all the memes. I think it's a really good film, and it's one of these films which we've discussed before, which I like, that you can kind of have a debate about and come to different conclusions, and everything is ambiguous. So for that reason alone, I would highly recommend it. It's not set in stone what is actually happening, and that for me is what makes the great films, because we're not idiots as the audience, and we should be there to make our own opinions on the films.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we say ambiguous, this isn't like an arty, difficult to get through movie. This is so much fun. I've never had so much fun seeing horrible violence being unleashed on women, prostitutes, the homeless, some of the most vulnerable people in the world, the elderly. But it's just fun. It's a fun, hilarious movie, and I'm sure it's not as rich in detail as the book, but it does perfectly lampoon that kind of corporate, commercial, elitist, only caring about the superficial things in life class of people that exists somewhere that you hear about and you see in depictions on telly, but you never really meet because they go in their own circles in life. And it's just hilarious. It's a fun, brilliant movie, and at the heart of it, it's anchored by an incredible performance by Christian Bale. One that he nearly didn't get to do. It was offered to Leonardo DiCaprio. He eventually turned it down after a long time. Despite the fact that he was off the gig for 9 months, Christian Bale kept auditioning for it, kept putting his name in for it, kept working out as if he was going to get the part, kept trying to get into the role and rereading the book as if he had the part still for 9 long months. Personally called Ewan McGregor when he was offered the role and asked him not to do it.
Yeah.
Because he was so obsessed with getting this role to play this psychopath, and he plays it so well. Every smile has just the slightest thing off with it that leaves you in this uncanny valley where you can just tell that something's wrong with this guy. He's just perfect in this movie, and it's the role that really launched him into stardom, and supposedly was a big part of the reason why Christopher Nolan ended up casting him as Batman. So really, it's the role that he was most fought for in his career, and the role that most defined and really launched his career. So this is an easy recommendation for American Psycho.
Hey, Paul!
This is the Filming McFilm Film Show.